But joining us now is Jim Francis, a candidate for Louisiana's 1st Congressional District. How you doing, Jim?
I'm good, Walt. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I wanted the people to be able to hear you. It does no good if we can't hear you.
Good point.
So tell us about some of the, I know you have them listed on your website, but some of the votes that you differed with Congressman Scalise on, and in particular, the votes that affected the 1st Congressional District and Louisiana.
Well, specifically, some of the big votes pertain to rural areas, teachers. When I was meeting with teachers just a few weeks ago, I did research on Scalise's voting record, and what we find out is that not only do people not know these bills exist, they don't know that Scalise votes against them, such as adding counselors to rural schools. The one in Tangipahoa, 4,000 students, they have one counselor, and it's one of the biggest issues in the small schools. Steve Scalise votes. In fact, he's never voted once to raise taxes on the wealthier corporations, but he does vote 92% of the time to raise taxes on the middle class. I disagree with that. I don't see how somebody could do that and come back here and say that he's fighting for the people of Louisiana. Another one, he votes against Violence Against Women's Act, which has substantially funded programs here in Louisiana to help and provide a path out for battered women. I don't understand how he does that and still say what he says when he comes back home. I mean, we can go on, but there's a reoccurring pattern where he constantly votes against things that this state desperately, desperately needs.
But probably one of the biggest issues you have is the fact that you maintain that Congressman Scalise has voted to continue to tax the middle class over the wealthy.
Yes, I mean, you can see the actual bills that are listed on my website. It's not an opinion, it's nothing else, it's actual factual bills, and 92% of the time, he will raise taxes. He's in favor of it. Yeah, but there's so many other things too. Simple protections that would have not cost us anything. The Bureau for Consumer Finance Protection, that would actually protect the middle class and their retirements. A simple thing like that. Why could he not support that? And it's just this reoccurring pattern that we see where Scalise really represents the few hundred people who have major investments in oil and gas and telecom and things like that. Instead of the people who actually vote for him and try to get him to do something for us.
Well, the oil and gas industry certainly is vital to Louisiana and to our economy.
Absolutely, and I love that they're here. I'd like to have more of them here, but I do think that they are taking advantage of loopholes that Scalise refuses to do anything about. For example, a lot of people don't know that oil companies that refine here in Louisiana will actually pay a tax on oil that is produced in America and refined here. So what did they do? We're actually one of the biggest exporters of oil now. We import oil into Louisiana from the Middle East just to get around this tax, instead of using the oil that we actually pull out of Louisiana here. So I'm looking to close some of the loopholes. I think the companies should have massive tax advantages, which they already do. You see how much our state is hurt. The tax base is massively reduced. We have the oil. We have the gas. They're going to come here no matter what. And it is the cheapest form of extraction in the country. So that is extremely desirable for an oil or gas company. So they're not going to leave when you say, please start paying your fair share. We need you to start doing more, because we have to end up paying for all the damages in this state. We've had 230,000 wells drilled in this state since 1930. And that is reducing the amount of volume underneath the ground. The ground sinks. Now we have a bigger issue of erosion, flooding, everything else. And these are issues that really needed to be addressed a long time ago. Now we're paying for it tenfold.
Yeah, the importing of oil and trying to get around taxes, that has always been one of those anomalies that I've had issues with. We are speaking with Jim Francis, a candidate for Louisiana's 1st Congressional District, and your phone calls are welcome, 504-556-9696, 504-556-9696. We're going to take a quick break and then continue our conversation with Jim and find out more about his ideas and what he can bring to Louisiana and to the 1st Congressional District. When the Walt Bennetti radio program continues on WGSO 990 AM, WGSO.com, and the TuneIn Radio app. We are speaking with a candidate for Louisiana's 1st Congressional District, Jim Francis. And just as a disclaimer, because I have to say this, we are receiving no compensation, obviously, from Jim Francis for having him on, nor is he advertising, at least on this show, that I know of. And also the fact that I have known Congressman Scalise, the incumbent, and Jim's opponent for, 12, 15 years. And I have campaigned for Congressman Scalise, stood out there on streets, waving signs for him. Not going to do this time because I'm on the radio. And obviously I can't stand for a couple hours, just waving signs for somebody else. I could barely do that for myself if I ran for office, but have to get that out there, so the knuckleheads don't call and say, hey, you campaigned for Steve Scalise. Well, not this year. But we are welcoming all candidates on and giving them an opportunity to get their message across. And we want to welcome back Jim Francis again. And your website is pretty comprehensive as far as listing the votes and things like that you disagree with Congressman Scalise on. And one of the problems, the issues that I've had with Congressman Scalise, and I would tell him this, is the fact, and Congressman Richmond as well, as they have pledged allegiance to their parties and moved up within the party structure, I think they have paid less and less attention to Louisiana and to the congressional district. How would you combat that?
Well, first of all, transparency. I would absolutely be holding as many town halls as humanly possible. Open door policy. I like to actually take the calls when people call. I want to hear what's important because I know that our voices are not heard in Louisiana, especially with Steve Scalise. Nice guy, but he's just not doing what he tells us that he's doing. And that is a big issue with me. I mean, look what's happening in Louisiana. I mean, he could be helping us with the health care. He could be providing ideas on real immigration reform. He could be, providing ideas on how to fix the ethics issue that's in our government right now. There are so many things, but like you said, they do seem to shrink who they actually listen to and support. One fantastic example, I think, is the Affordable Care Act. How important it is, the expansion of Medicaid, how much it has helped us covering pre-existing conditions. We've got 20 states right now, Republican-led states, that are suing to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. The coverage of pre-existing conditions is so popular that these governors who are now part of this lawsuit are now making these political ads saying that they are fighting to protect your pre-existing conditions. So there's a huge disconnect there. They aren't listening. And that's the one thing I can truly promise to do. And I'm not always going to vote as a Democrat. I'm not always going to vote in favor of Republican policies. I'm going to do what's right for Louisiana. I'm very moderate, but I'm also a very safe alternative to Steve Scalise.
Yeah, I had some major issues with the Affordable Care Act, but I did agree with the pre-existing conditions policy and the fact that I think that helps people. And I was also for, and just as a matter of record, because you may not know, I was a lifelong Republican until about 4 years ago when I changed parties to a Libertarian. But I was also for the expansion of Medicaid within Louisiana because I think that has helped people. And that's what government should do when it has to. There are times when people need things and they need health care. So on that point, I definitely agree with you.
And I agree. And Jindal really held up the ball on that. So I have to give kudos to John Bell Edwards. First day in office, over 320,000 Louisiana citizens received health care, possibly for the first time in their lives.
When I read your website, I mean, yeah, you talked about a lot of votes where you disagree, and I think that is important, how you can contrast yourself against the incumbent, because you don't really have a track record yet. You can just say, here's what I hope to do, and here's where I differ. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Absolutely. And okay, the National Party, I have issues with. I'm not a huge fan of. Jefferson Parish has endorsed me. It's the teachers that I'm focused on. It's the quality of the education. It's what I see are so many things slipped through that we could have had. And that's what really bothers me. And one of the issues I have also are people who are getting older and they're in careers in industries that are failing or potentially on the decline dramatically. I've got specific ideas on how to help them transition at no cost to themselves to get the training that they need to move into more productive careers. You know, I want to focus on solar and renewable. That's providing, nearly 200,000 new jobs, high-paying jobs, a year in this state. And Scalise voted against the incentivizing program that would bring more solar and renewable here in favor of oil and gas. We can have both. There are specific issues that we could do to actually increase the quality of people's lives. And, 10 years ago, Scalise was brand new too. So, but I keep hearing third most powerful, that would be awesome if he would use that power to do something for this state. And he has not. We've seen repeatedly what he's done against the veterans, what we've seen on workers' rights, the anti-union, not supporting public education, wanting to do so many things in the favors of corporations, but not for the common middle class guy. I'm a middle class guy. I'm from the middle class. I'm not some rich guy, I see it from the ground level, what's affecting people and what most people talk about and what they wish would be changed. And that's what I would bring light to.
In the last minute or so that we have, tell people how they can get involved with your campaign, about your website, any social media that you're on, and how, I said, they can get involved and try to help you.
Absolutely. JimFrancisForCongress.com, all spelled out, no number 4. It's JimFrancisForCongress.com. Facebook, I have a large presence there. Same thing, JimFrancisForCongress.com. My Twitter account is very active, and that is JimFrancisLA01. We have 5 teams of volunteers going throughout the district right now, knocking on doors, spreading the word, things like that. I just want people to know that there is an alternative to Steve Scalise. And that's my goal, is to get representation for Louisiana.
Well, we appreciate you, Jim, for giving people an option. And obviously they don't need to always vote for the incumbent, especially if the incumbent isn't doing such a great job. And you point out some of the differences that you have with Congressman Scalise on your website. So I encourage everybody to visit that. We're going to take a quick break for the news, and we will continue.